What are we doing tonight? We're going to affirm our inherent worth and ability, discuss how to embrace the joy and freedom that comes with your authenticity, and we're going to write in community. So let's get started with writing in community. Our opening lines for tonight are write an affirmation for right before you reach for an opportunity you are not qualified for or that you think you don't deserve. We'll write for 5 minutes and you can share your responses in the chat. Okay, thank you to everyone for sharing. I want to introduce our guest author for today, Deesha Dyer. Deesha Dyer is the founder and CEO of Hook and Fasten, a social impact firm. Dyer is an award-winning event strategist, community organizer, and sought-after keynote speaker who specializes in transforming ideas into causes that create tangible change. Dyer is also the co-founder and executive director of Be Girl World, an organization that empowers teen girls through global education and travel. Additionally, she oversees Black Girl 44, a scholarship fund for young Black women seeking internships in Washington, D.C., and the Deesha Dyer Second Chance Scholarship at the Community College of Philadelphia. Deesha's journey began at a community college and led to her role as social secretary for the Obama White House. Her work has led to her being named Marie Claire's New Guard of Women Changing the World and the Root's Most Influential African Americans. She has also been featured in Vogue, Travel Noir, and The Washington Post, and in 2022, Deesha was awarded the Women of Excellence Award by the City of Washington, D.C. Her debut book, Undiplomatic from Hatchet Book Group, came out on April 23rd of this year. So everybody, join me in welcoming Deesha.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here. And thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And thank you all for spending your Friday night with me as we celebrate early Juneteenth, which we can celebrate all week, right? So it's okay. It's okay. So I'm going to read an excerpt from my new book, Undiplomatic, How My Attitude Created the Best Kind of Trouble. And the excerpt kind of goes with the affirmation and the question that was just asked about how do we get ourselves ready for these big opportunities, right? And so this scene, I'm just going to set it up for some of you since I'm not reading the whole chapter. This scene was when I was 31 years old in Philadelphia in 2009, and I applied to be a White House intern for President Barack Obama. So someone who I didn't know, I didn't have any connections. So this kind of sets up that scene. One June night in 2009, I was cooking dinner and my Rottweiler, Change, was lazily watching me as I stirred meat sauce for spaghetti, waiting for a drop to casually fall into his lap. My micro braids were pushed up under my bed bonnet already on my head for the night and to keep them off my sweaty neck. I could not let my hair absorb the delicious onion, tomato, and garlic smell of the food. Jill Scott and Mos Def were serenading my ears with the Love Rain remix, a track off of Jilly from Philly's debut album, which I listened to weekly since it came out in 2000. The song has a vibe of hip hop, soul, and jazz blends, with lyrics that rise above the beat just perfectly. Love rain down on me, down on me. My hips subtly swayed on this hot Philadelphia day. My apartment was steaming and had a window air conditioner unit that sort of worked when I sealed the cardboard down on the side with sturdy duct tape and prayed that it stayed put through the night. The music stopped abruptly. I looked at my phone and saw a call coming in from an unidentified number. It was after 8 p.m., and I was in my groove. If your credit is funny like mine, you know very well that this could be a bill collector. So answering the phone is at your own risk. The best options are to ignore or answer in a different persona. Putting on my best white woman professional voice, I answered, "Hello," into my new sleek iPhone 3G, not knowing this call would change the course of my life. On the other end was a wholesome voice of a 20-something. He said that he was calling from the Office of Scheduling and Advance to interview me for the fall White House internship program. Um, okay, I said, throwing down the spoonful of sauce on a pot holder I grabbed from the oven door. I was whipping up enough pasta to last for the next few days, so I'd have no reason to turn on the stove again in this oppressive heat. I turned the knob to off and lightly placed all the dirty cooking dishes in the sink with soap and water so Change wouldn't use his big paw to knock them off the counter and enjoy the fruits of my labor. I was frazzled and filled with nervous anxiety because this all felt like an out of body experience. Patrick was following up on an application I submitted 2 months before to be a White House intern. I had no idea what the Office of Scheduling and Advance did, but he explained that it handled and supported President Obama's daily schedule and all travel. As he dove deeper into the mechanics of the department, I scurried around the apartment for something to write with. I grabbed a pen and an old piece of junk mail and started jotting down as much as I could, still not quite knowing whether this was a formality of the application or whether I had gotten an internship. A steady stream of OKs poured from my mouth robotically to let him know I was cool, calm, and paying attention, but my heart pounded in my ears. He apologized for going on so long about the department and then spoke words I will never forget. We are interested in interviewing you to be a fall intern. I moved from the kitchen to my bedroom where it was quiet. I sat down on the bed, staring out the window to the row house next door as Patrick continued telling me the terms of the internship. Change followed me, still hoping he'd get droppings from dinner. Thank you. I am very interested, I said, silently leaping off the bed so excitedly that Change started barking. I was 31 years old, on my second attempt at college after a failed first attempt at 17. I now had only 12 college credits to my name. I'm not even sure exactly what made me think I would actually be chosen. I had an eviction on my record and terrible credit. I'd written about a past abortion in the newspaper, and I didn't have any connections to politics, unlike some who'd been active in government since college or had family members who held positions in Washington. There was no political legacy in my bloodline or lifeline, which, as it turned out, was a good thing. I had a resume full of unexpected detours. I hadn't applied for the internship in the hope that I'd get it, but I'd been curious enough to try.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Deesha. I'm just going to share our slides.
I love reading that. It's like, did that really happen? I always ask myself. So I think we're going to go right, Ayana, into the first writing prompt, correct? Make sure
Yes.
we're good. Great. So I read a little bit about the chapter. I read a little bit about an excerpt from the chapter. But let's talk a little bit about it in the sense of you all, right? Can you remember a time when you didn't get something you wanted? So that's the first part of the writing exercise. Added to, can you write about that time, including what you were wearing, if you remember, the smell of the room, who was there? And I say those descriptors because sometimes people like, oh, I remember what the smell of spaghetti is, or I wear a bed bonnet. So it kind of puts the reader into the story, right? So let's do this writing exercise and answer this question.
We'll write for about 5 minutes.
Be okay? Okay. So this one, I definitely want to hear some things when we get done writing because I know Some of you have these. Oh, we all do. And adults also, I would love for you to share all the ones on the adults on here. But how many things have you done that you didn't think you could do in life? And pick one and write about what helped you achieve it. So, out of all the things that you were like, I'm scared, I don't know if I could do it, I'm not qualified, whether it's a promotion or a scholarship, or maybe making a team or anything, getting a job, or even doing just something like, putting outfits together or not sure what you're going to wear, how your hair, anything at all. I would love to hear about, things that you were like, I don't like this, I don't know if I could do it, and then you did do it and pick one, and I want you to write about it and what helped you achieve it. And the things that like it could be people that helped you, it could be songs, it could be just your confidence or maybe some encouragement from somewhere. And so I love to hear about that. And I think we're gonna write for about another 5 minutes, correct?
Yes, give or take. Like the
Okay,
last
give or
time,
take.
give or take. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. Then we can move on to the Q&A. If you have any questions for Deesha about her journey, about her book, Undiplomatic, anything at all, now's the time.
So I have a quick question. I'm just curious. So once you were in the White House and you're showing up every day, did you experience imposter syndrome? And if so, how did you really sort of navigate that? And then also navigate it to the point where you were able to reflect, by writing a full-length manuscript. And then what's the process then to sort of, so you over to
Yeah.
life as an author?
That's a great question. And if this happens again, I'm gonna go right on my phone. So you all don't leave. I'm not sure what happened. Anyway, thank you so much for that. And thank you for your patience. And so I definitely experienced imposter syndrome going to the White House. I think that imposter syndrome, for those of you who may not know, it's when you feel that you are not qualified, that you've got lucky instead of earning something. It kind of like permeates your whole aura of being. Like if you get a promotion or something, or you get a scholarship, you kind of downplay it, like, well, I don't know why I got it. I don't know, understand why. So I definitely felt that going to the White House as someone who did not have a college degree and everyone else did, and I also was 31 years old while everyone else like at intern age is like 19 to 21. So I definitely felt like I didn't belong, like I wasn't smart enough to be there. But then I like talked to the other interns who were not my age, but they were feeling the same thing. They were just like, we don't even know how we got here either. So I think that it's this thing where once I started talking to people, it was really something normal for all of us because we were in the White House and we were like, we can't believe we got here out of all these people. I think that once I got hired, it just continued that feeling of like, are they sure that they want me here? And like, if I make one mistake, which we all make, mistakes are going to happen, right? I was like, this means I'm stupid. I don't deserve this job. And so I had to really learn how to curb that as I started climbing the ladder at the White House and started being like, not only at this point do you keep getting promoted, right? But like, you're doing a good job, and you like what you do, and no one's calling you out for anything. So maybe you are qualified and maybe you do belong here. So I think that that's when I started really believing in myself. I'd say around 2015, after I was there for 6 years. And I started writing, like talking about imposter syndrome, using my story, and people just loved it. They were just like, you kind of put lessons inside of these fun stories about the Obamas. And so then that's when I thought I'm going to turn it into a book, because after I'm done speaking with people, I'm like, there's so much more to say, or there's so much more to the story, and we only have 45 minutes. And so that's when I turned it into the story. And it was hard putting the manuscript together. For those who don't know, manuscript is kind of what your first writing of your book, like that your manuscript turns into the final product of the book, because I knew people would be critical of it, because that's what editors are supposed to do, make it better. But I was thinking, I don't know how good I can take feedback, because I take it so hard that I'm just not good. But I had to, in order to make a better book, I had to put it out there. And so that was the process for me, is just like handing it in and closing my eyes and kind of like talking about some of those affirmations that we all spoke about earlier, being like, it's going to be all right. I'm just going to go for it. And maybe when people give me feedback, it's not critique on my character or my smarts or anything else. They're making my writing better and they're making my book better, so readers will relate to it. So I had to adopt that philosophy, but it was very hard, Marjorie, to do that. Very hard. That's a great question.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a question?
I have a quick question. How was your experience as a Black woman in the White House, aside from the experience you just described, which thanks for sharing that with us?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking that. And so what I'll say is that, having a Black president and first lady was great. I mean, like, it was amazing. I don't think I would have been there if it was probably any other president, right? But I would say that the Washington social scene and the Washington political scene is not Black. And while there is a Black component to it, obviously I'm working at the highest office. And so people are not all Black, but the president and first lady are. So I think that it was hard for me, if I'm keeping it 100, because I had kept my nose ring in. I'm like not wearing hoops right now, but I usually have my hoops in. I had my braids, my poetic justice braids or whatever. I didn't have a relaxer. So I think that there were all these things that were like respectability politics that I had to play. And it was very, 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 very hard, because it was kind of like, oh, who's this girl from Philly that got this job? Like, when there's the so-and-so over here that could have got that job. And I'm like, yeah, but the president and first lady didn't choose them. So I would say that was very hard on me. I was very lucky that I found a group of other Black folks at the White House, and we just kind of stuck together and lifted each other up. But I don't think I would have gotten it through it without them. Because no matter what people say, like, especially when it comes to race, I think people are very excited about power. So they want to be close to the Obamas because of their power, their charisma, they're all these things, but like, I'm not the Obamas. So then they wanted to treat me a little bit differently, So I had to flex a few times and be like, nah, not over here, babe. But like, it was tough. But I think that finding a group of allies and community folks that can really be there for me was a key of everything. That's a really great question. Thank you.
No, thank you for sharing.
Of course, of course.
Michelle, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, but before I say that, I just want to say, Deesha, mad respect for
Oh,
your
thank you.
courage. I mean, especially recognizing your strengths and facing the imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
facing all of those scary steps of, working in the White House and getting your book out there and saying your story and holding true to yourself.
Yeah.
Scary. And you did
Yes.
it. So pat yourself on the back.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Just
Michelle.
wanted
Thank
to
you.
say that.
Thank you
Huge
so much.
respect.
I appreciate it.
And I want to read your book. So what's the name of it? Is there a link?
Yes. So the book is called Undiplomatic: How My Attitude Create the Best Kind of Trouble. Looks like this. And we
Okay.
can put a link in the chat of
Yeah.
where you can purchase the book. It's also available in audio because it's a Juneteenth event. We love to lift up our independent Black bookstores. That most likely, I don't know where you live, but most likely there's one in your area. If not, there's Uncle Bobby's and Harriet's in Philadelphia, where I'm from, and then also Reparations in LA. But I would say there it is. But there I would say that that's where you can get it. And then there's audio as well if you want to listen to it. So yeah.
And are you the author? Are you the narrator?
I am the narrator.
Oh,
I didn't
love
plan
it.
on
I
it, Michelle.
love
Didn't plan
books.
on it. I thought we'd get somebody else, and someone was like, "Well,
No,
it's
those
about
are the
your
best
life, so it'll
books.
feel weird from somebody else." But
Those are the best books, the ones where the author, especially when it's their story, when
yes,
it's in their own voice, that
yes,
just makes it so much more powerful.
yes, yes. And it was
Yeah,
just,
so
I mean,
glad
the
it worked
process
out
of,
that way.
thank you. The process of recording it was just like, as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, I want to change that, but it was too late. It had already been done. Like, so yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
cool.
Thank you.
We have a question in the chat from Madison.
Mhm.
She says, Deesha, since the Obama presidency, a lot of events have happened, like the rollback of Roe v. Wade, ending of affirmative action, the latest rebuke by the Supreme Court for gerrymandering. It feels like we're regressing instead of grasping boldly for the optimistic multicultural America. What's your view on this?
No, Madison, that's an excellent question. That's a heavy question, but that's a really great question. I think that's something appropriate, probably, on this Juneteenth holiday, as we look at civil rights and Black rights and everything else. I think that my opinion on it is one that I will say that, and I'm going to say this very boldly, that the Obamas, it was an amazing time and it was a great time. But I think a lot of people thought because they were Black, because they were progressive, because they were Democrats, that was moving us way forward, and understand that really angered a lot of people. So once they got out, they were ready to roll everything back. I think that people, our country was founded on slavery, right? And so our Constitution, everything else, was written without Black people or the rights of women and other things. And so we have to sometimes remember that when we're trying to fight these things, because it is built into the fabric of this nation. But what I think is that if we continue to fight, and not just on a national level, because there are more elections in the presidential, there's your state senators, there's your city boards, there's your school boards. You have to remember that some of these things that you're naming definitely are big, especially like Roe v. Wade and the affirmative action, the gerrymandering that affects voting. But a lot of stuff is happening on a local and civil level that we're not paying attention to. That is just the roots of all these things that you put in the chat. And so my view is that it makes me angry. It makes me upset for the future, for the young people. I was very thankful that I grew up in a time that Roe v. Wade was the law of the land. And so, if you wanted to get an abortion, or if you wanted to, like, you could go do that. And now to know that, women or people that give birth may be, criminalized for that is disgusting. So what I say is that, like, we have to keep fighting, not just for these things that you mentioned, but also for our joy and for ourselves. And, like, just like the writing exercises that we did tonight. And some of you said, when I read it out loud, it like gave me a boost. Like, we have to remember how wonderful we are, aside from some of these things that people are doing or saying, which is why gatherings like this and being involved in Girls Right Now and other things are so important for us to gather and have that joy. So I think that we keep fighting. We fight on all levels, but then also we also don't give our all to the fights. There's stuff left for us to be joyful, to be carefree, to be in community, to just do fun things that we're like, don't get bogged down. But it's sad and it makes me upset, but I refuse to give up, because I don't want to say that I didn't do all that I could do. But also sometimes the fight is just us walking around Black and happy, like, and that's it. That's what you're gonna get today, Black and happy. And that's enough. So yeah.
Thank you for that answer, Deesha.
course.
And thank you for that question, Madison. That was really deep
Yeah.
and thoughtful.
Yes.
We have time for maybe one more question, if anyone else would like to ask something. I have a question.
Yes.
So we read, I read your bio when I introduced you as our guest author, and there's just like there's so much that you've accomplished that you continue to do.
Mhm.
And so I guess my question is twofold. Do you still experience imposter syndrome even though you're like doing great? And then also, like, how do you make time for yourself and for that Black joy,
Yes.
even while doing all of these things you're doing for the community and all that stuff?
Yes, I love your question. So thank you so much for that. I definitely still experience imposter syndrome here and there. I think it's not realistic to say you're just going to overcome it. I think that, for me, imposter syndrome was baked into like the fabric of who I was as a young Black girl that was always expressing her opinion and loud and, like, had a nose and lips and all these other things that weren't acceptable. And you have to remember, I'm 46. So back in my day, we didn't have all these stand up and speak your mind. It was like, you're talking out of turn and be quiet and you're so loud. So I grew up thinking, and I also didn't grow up with my parents. And so I grew up thinking I was an inconvenience, that who I was wrong from when I was 9, when my parents gave me up to, for a very long time. And so throughout that process, imposter syndrome was just, it was affirmations of just like systemic racism and sexism was all feeding all of that. So I had to literally, when I was about 40 years old, like go to therapy, dig up these roots of why I feel so inferior all the time, although I'm like the right hand to the president with stuff, which is ridiculous. But I'm just like, no, I don't know if I should be here. But like I'm sitting in the Oval Office being like, I don't know if I should be here. So I had to really realize that like my accomplishments and my achievements are not substitutions for making me feel good, right? For who I am. They are a complement to the natural characteristics of who I am, my work ethic, my beauty, my Blackness, my everything. They are a complement. So whether I went to the White House or not, I'm still dope, right? Right. But I was looking at it like I have to keep achieving. So people keep thinking I'm so smart, I'm so accomplished, I'm so connected. And so I still get imposter syndrome. It creeps up here and there, but now it creeps up. It's like a guest that comes and you like, oh, it's time for you to go home. Like you gotta go. You know what I mean? Like you don't have a bedroom here no more. There is no place in my body for you anymore. Versus before I'd be like, come have a seat, have a drink. We're best friends. You got to go. And I realized that a lot of my imposter syndrome was really just me trying new things. And so we need to remember that, like, if you've never done something before, like written a book, I'm going to be scared. Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm scared. And that's okay to have those natural scary feelings, but I'm not going to let it stop me and put myself down from writing. So I manage it now. It still comes and goes, but I don't want to say overcome because I want to be realistic that you can manage it. Overcoming is hard as long as you keep growing and keep your curiosity going. So I think that, but it feels good to be on the other side of like not being addicted to validation to make myself feel better. But it's constant therapy, constant staying in community. And, all the things that I do, I make sure that I make time for my Black joy, right? I'm not afraid to step away from stuff and say, this is not for me anymore. It's taken away from my joy and not feeling bad about that. Because I think often, especially for Black women and for women in general, we feel bad when we like neglect the cause or something to take care of ourselves. No, I no longer feel bad, right? And so I think that, hopefully answers your question a bit. So yeah, but thank you for that great question. That's a great question.
Thank you for your answer. Yeah, that was
course.
amazing. So relatable. And we just have a few announcements. So if you want to connect with Deesha after this event, we're going to drop a link to her website, which has her contact information, her socials, all that kind of stuff. And we also are we can drop again the link to order your own copy of Deesha Dyer's book, Undiplomatic. As we heard from that excerpt, it's going to be healing. It's going to be amazing, inspiring. Yes, show the book.
I call myself Vanna Black. Vanna Black. There we go.
Yes. Thank you for writing with us. Follow us on social at Girls Right Now, and visit our website, girlsrightnow.org, to learn more about us. It was so nice meeting you all.